Hey guys, I just wanted to catch you before this video starts to let you know that this is not the usual type of video I would upload. It's actually a clip from the Nerdiest podcast where we talked about Demon Slayer Season 2 on one of our recent episodes. So it was a really good conversation that we had, and I think you guys would enjoy it, which is why I clipped it out for you guys to see. So if you want to watch the full episode, the link will be in the description, but for now, enjoy this clip.
I'll also say, animation in this season was like, holy cow. Like, especially the last, 3 episodes, I was like, Lord have mercy. It was another level. And I didn't think that from the last season it could be, or from the movie, it could be another level. Because the movie was another level. They just keep outdoing themselves in the animation.
Yeah.
It's insane. I didn't think that they could outdo themselves, and they did. I was like, wow.
It's incredible.
I will also say something that I think we don't talk about enough for animated shows and movies is editing, because we talk about animation, but here's the thing. You still have to edit an animated show the same way you would edit a normal show. You just have to be very intentional about what gets animated because you don't want to waste your time and resources. So you're essentially piecing it together as if it's edited. And
Right.
I really, really think that Demon Slayer is one of the most well-edited animated things I've ever seen. Movie show, ever. It is just, there is actual cinematography considered in this show. They are pulling it together to because here's the thing about fight sequences, it'd be so easy to get lost in these huge big fights with all these sprawling spectacles, but I'm locked in. I know exactly what's going on, and
Exactly.
this
So
is very well edited.
while we're here, instead of looping back to it, I'll just pose the question to you. One of the biggest criticisms of Demon Slayer used by the people who don't like it, and even just generally on the internet, is that Demon Slayer is carried by animation. Do you think that is true? Do you agree with that, yes or no?
I think the word carried is intense. I think you could say that the animation contributes to the emotion, but that's literally the point of animation. So if you want to say that there's no good story and it's just flashy animation, this and that, I would argue that the animation would not be good without the story. Because if I'm watching this really just beautifully animated thing, but the story is garbage and there's just nothing to it, and I'm just there's just fight. If it was actually just fights, I don't think we would credit it as high because we would not be near as engaged. We wouldn't care. We wouldn't care if it was just fights, I feel like it's kind of the two things that connect. And it's this Venn diagram of animation, characters, story. And it's I think if you had lower budget animation on the show, it would still be really good. It would still be really good. If it was just the story and the fights weren't near as flashy and you had to cut the budget in half, okay, the story would still be phenomenal. That's
Right.
my opinion. You don't need that 10 out of 10 animation to tell that story. But by having it, the story goes from a 10 to a 12. And you're just kind of it is conveyed in the most emotion-jerking way possible. This is why people are connecting to anime a lot more than, animated stuff that we make in America, is because they know how to make the show through the animated medium pull these emotions out of you. And it's just something we haven't really gotten to yet. The closest example I have is the Spider-Verse movies, and that's kind of how it made me feel. Was it really, they conveyed so much emotion using the medium. And that's kind of how I feel about Demon Slayer, is it would not work in live action, but it would work with slower animation. It just wouldn't be a 12, it'd be a 10, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And I think, to your point, carried is a very strong word, because there are some shows that are genuinely carried by animation, right? Like, that have a mediocre story and have incredible animation that you're like, okay, well, it looks really pretty, so I'll stay.
Right.
And then there are some shows that have really bad animation but really good story, so you're like, okay, I'll stick through that, right? Like an example, here's an example of a show that has good animation but a bad story, Sword Art Online, right?
Yeah.
Like, Progressive, the movie, looks great. I think Sword Art Online is a phenomenally beautiful, like, well-edited, well-animated, great sound effects, all of these things. I like it, but playing devil's advocate to the point we discussed on that episode was, story's not great.
No.
Like, it's not great, but
no,
it still looks really good and people like it, right? And I think
Right.
Demon Slayer falls somewhere in the middle of, first of all, Ufotable, this is, one, their only project that they're working on at the moment. And
has
which
their full
is,
attention.
as far as I'm aware, is incredibly rare in the anime space, because a lot of studios are working on multiple shows at once, so they kind of have to parcel out their best team to work on all these different shows, whereas Demon Slayer, they've been able to put a lot of emphasis and time and quality and care into it. Secondly, I think Demon Slayer is not carried by animation, but it's elevated by animation.
Yes.
Because to your point, the manga was already doing and selling incredibly well
Right.
for it to get an anime adaptation in the first place. But even outside of that, it was on pace and almost outselling some of the bigger series like My Hero, One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, like all of that. And then they take this really good anime adaptation and just somehow turn it into a 12 out of 10. And
Right.
through bringing all of these things together, and like, one thing I really like is, and I know you haven't like watched season 3 or 4 yet, but something they do with all of the Hashira is they style the fight around that Hashira. So like, Rengoku's fight feels very different to Tengen's fight, because Tengen is the flashy Hashira. So of course you're going to get all these fireworks and all these explosions and this big like flashy blades clashing and whatnot. And then next season, like, we'll get to Mitsuri and, what's his name? Moichiro. Like, their fights feel very different from each other because they're very different, but they feel different to what we've seen. Because it's not like they're all different. They all have these different breathing styles. Tanjiro's fight feels very different from Tengen's fight. So, like, just that little detail. And like you said, I think editing is something that goes incredibly unnoticed and underappreciated. This anime has very good editing, knows exactly how to storyboard and master its direction to pull out all of those emotions from you, but also has really good music and sound effects. Like, all of the breathing styles have very distinct, unique sound effects that I think goes underlooked in a lot of series, and they're things that you just don't think about. So no, I don't think Demon Slayer is carried by animation. I don't think that's a valid criticism to put at it, because also, first of all, anime really is just a glorified advertisement for the manga.
Right.
They want you to go pick up the manga. That's why so many seasons end off on a cliffhanger. Like, the numbers probably aren't out yet, but I cannot imagine how much the manga sales have spiked after the ending of this Demon Slayer season. Like, the cliffhanger they left on, if I wasn't reading the manga already, I would have gone out and bought it, because it's an intense cliffhanger. So there's that. Like, it is supposed to be a glorified advertisement. Second of all, it's an adaptation, bro. Is it supposed to look bad? That's my go-to whenever someone's like, Demon Slayer's carried by animation. I'm like, so it's supposed to look bad? Just admit that you don't like Demon Slayer because it's the new hip popular thing. I don't have any. I know Demon Slayer is not for everyone, right? I get that.
Right.
I don't like Jujutsu Kaisen. I don't think it's a very good show, but I know there's plenty of people who like it, right?
Right.
I know there are people who feel that way about Demon Slayer. Just openly admit you don't like the show and move on.
Right. Because, I don't know, people will always hate something that's popular because it's popular. And it's so hip to, like, be the first one to know something or like something. And it's just kind of like, just freaking like what you like and
Yeah.
just enjoy it, and then let other people do the same.
But
you
I guess
know?
that
Like,
doesn't
why
get clicks on Twitter, so